What's up, everybody? Man, I'm rushing. I'm rushing to get to get this going. Got a lot of stuff going on today. Let me go to let's bring up the chat, comments and reactions. Say hi when you arrive. Let me know what's good today. Okay. All right. Got Rob in the house. Klaus, Redo, Justin, Sylvia, Mark. Good to see you. Derek. Got a lot of familiar faces, which is fantastic. We'll see what our viewership is like today. We got a last minute announcement. This is a holiday week in the US. So I think a lot of people in the US are a little bit checked out this week. My birthday is in 2 days. 2 days. It is in alignment with a national holiday, which is not fantastic, if you like celebrating your birthday, but it is what it is. It's all good. What's up, Garth, Manny, Patrick, two Patricks, one right after the other. D123 in the house, Grant in the house, Joel, Cyprian from Romania. Here for the next hour until football begins. Okay, that's the other thing we have to contend with, right? Big football season right now for y'all. As we say, soccer. Okay, no, I've talked about this before. Actually, I think the word football, dude, it always does this. It always does this. Look at that delay, tremendous delay too. This is the problem with Arc. Arc keeps tabs open in the background, even though they're not actually listed in the tabs area. And you never realize that those tabs are still open until they start auto-playing things in the background. Okay, let's go and just get started. So here's what we're doing today with the agenda. Last week, we had over 200 concurrent live viewers for a beginner web design Q&A. Essentially, an open invitation to ask whatever questions you want. There's no dumb questions. There's no questions that are too basic. And, I committed to answering them in rapid fire fashion, which, I do try to cover the topic as much as possible. So my rapid fire is a little bit different from other people's rapid fire, but nevertheless, I tried to go question, and just pack in as much value as possible. And we still ran out of time. I did that for 2 straight hours, and there were still just dozens of questions that were left unanswered. So what I'm doing today is a 2.0 version of that stream, which means you need to get your questions locked and loaded. The way you do that is you put #Q or #question, and then you ask your question in the chat. That way I can search and I can filter and we can go right through the list of questions. You could start putting those in right now. Go ahead and start putting any questions you have in right now. If you're not sure, if you're like, is this intermediate? Is this beginner? Just ask it and I'll decide as we go, okay? MDN says in 2 days it will be 1 year since I bought a CSS LTD. It was someone's birthday. Yes, absolutely. Is it great having a public holiday on your birthday every year in the States? No, it's not. Everywhere you want to go to celebrate is absolutely packed. My glasses are really dirty. Everywhere you want to go is absolutely packed. There's fireworks going off everywhere into the night. Nobody cares about you, okay? They just they just care about the birth of the country. That's the life that I live. Okay, let's see. Okay, good. Questions are rolling in. We will get to those. Hey, I see a couple though that don't have the hashtag. If they don't have the hashtag, the minute I filter to questions, they're gonna get lost. So make sure you are asking with the hashtag. Chris says, ahoy from Jacksonville, Florida. You're a little close to the Gators down there, Florida. I'm talking about the football team, Florida Gators. You know how we feel about them up here in Georgia. Okay, but no, I do. I like Jacksonville. I like anywhere in Florida. Actually, Florida is a tremendous state. Am I the only one that still says £? No, I do say £, also. But the younger crowd, I think, knows what a hashtag is. I don't know. Chris says no Gator fan here. Whew. Okay, good stuff. All right, well, let's just, they're rolling in. So let's go ahead and start answering. All right, we're gonna filter here. Is there an updated Start Here resource, i.e. Brick setup, suggested tools, plugins? Let's go ahead and share my screen so I don't forget to do that. Suggested tools, plugins, and settings, etc. for someone starting out following your courses, which are great, by the way. I'm going to do an updated stack video, but there's not significant changes to the stack, really. So you can still go back and watch that stack video from a year or two ago, and it's still fairly accurate. Obviously, the builder has changed. Obviously, automatic CSS has changed dramatically with 3.0. So, but if you're watching ACSS 101, then you're going to get all the information you need on the ACSS side of things. That's an ongoing series over on the Automatic CSS and Frames channel. Highly, highly, highly recommend you watch that. Everybody should watch that. It's just really good information on workflow. But yeah, it's not, tremendously different. It's not tremendously different. Okay, how can I disable the automatic Gutenberg CSS style sheet? I don't use Gutenberg. Similar question for the inline CSS, automatic core inline CSS. Two ACSS questions right off the bat. Oh, I do want to show you guys something as well. I don't know why we're in here. Okay. So in automatic CSS, you're going to go to options, you're going to go to Gutenberg, and you're going to see some toggles. Load styles in the block editor. Use block editor for page building. You can generate a color palette where you can replace the Gutenberg color palette with ACSS colors. You can implement the class first workflow, which moves the classes box to the top of every block editor screen. You can control the page block width and the post block width, and then we have page width post types. There's documentation on all of this stuff. It would take too long to explain, but essentially what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to toggle these first two toggles off. And then essentially you will have the default Gutenberg editor. If you enable this toggle, you're able to use utility classes in Gutenberg and see them, live preview, all of that will work. And then if you use block editor for page building, then you get the full experience of pages become full width. You can do literal page building in Gutenberg with ACSS. So this is the area you're going to want to explore. Now, keep in mind, and there is a long thread, many long threads that I've written. Gutenberg, when I say it is a dumpster fire, when I say it is a trash can, when I say it is all of those things, okay? And for very good reason. I'm not even talking about the UX. I'm talking about fundamental programming and development, just chaos, absolute chaos. For example, if you have WS Form installed or any plugin that adds a block to Gutenberg that is not on their V3 API, it will render in a non-iframe format. If you don't have any of those plugins installed, it will render in an iframe. It will apply default reset styling depending on those different environments. It will make so many decisions about how things should be done. And it makes decisions that it then overrides itself, its own decisions. If you go in, there's just tremendous conflict in the default CSS that underlines Gutenberg. There's static values everywhere for things. There's crazy rules. There's way more specificity than should be used. It is an absolute trash can. Like under the hood, it is an absolute nightmare. So like no ifs, ands, or buts. It is tremendously difficult to work with that environment. And so, we've had to put in so many different adjustments and tweaks, and because we'll get it working perfectly and some user will be like, well, I threw in this block and everything went to shit. And it's like, well, the minute they threw in that block, Gutenberg started making all these different decisions about how things should be rendered. And it's just an absolute nightmare. So, yes, this is the safest approach right now. If you don't use Gutenberg all that much, you can load styles in block editor. Don't use block editor for page building. The generate color palette, replace color palette, I leave those off because it's useless. There's no organization in the Gutenberg color swatch picker. It literally just puts every color, every shade, every transparency in there as a swatch with no labels, no organization, functionality, no nothing. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. It's just, yeah, try to stay out of Gutenberg. It's just kind of like, why are you using it that much? Okay. Hopefully that answers that question. If you modify a frames class, what are the bounds of that modification and how would you backtrack to the original? I'll try to answer that question. Let me see. What version of automatic CSS is this, by the way? Let me save. I don't even know what. I just pulled up a random development environment, which is probably not the best thing to do, but we'll see. Let's go to options, bricks, because I just noticed something. Oh yeah, let's stack the elements panel. Let's pro mode for add elements. Let's hide redundant bricks components. Okay, save. Let's see if we can, because I was like, this is a little different than I've been used to lately. Okay, there we go. That's a bit better. All right, let's go to add a frame of any kind here. So let's do a simple one. We don't want to go too crazy. Let's try Hero Victor. Okay. What is going on with here? Oh, I've already edited it on this site because that's the one we were using last time, in last week's, when I was absolutely positioning things for somebody's question. So let's not use that one. Let's go to Footer Lima. Okay. So Footer Lima is a fairly simple frame. It's got a class Footer Lima. If you open it up, it's got an inner, it's got a bottom, which is this legal kind of row down here. In the inner, it's got this content wrapper for your heading and this call to action, and then it's got the nav stuff over on the right-hand side. I guess the footer is not that great to use because there's only gonna be one instance of it. That's not really gonna answer your question, is it? Content section pop-up. Okay, let's put this one in. Let's throw a photo in so that we can see something happening, okay? Great. All right, so let's take this one for example. FR content section pop-up. You've got an intro in here, intro alpha. You've got the inner, which is a media wrapper, media content wrapper for your content. So you're using this all over the website. Maybe you use this like, multiple times. Pretend that those are on other pages, right? They're not, obviously you wouldn't do this on the same page, but you've used these all over the place. It really depends. Okay, so maybe you decide you want the gap to be bigger, okay? So if you come in here and activate the class on the inner where the gap is, and you make it bigger, like ×2, so now I have a bigger gap, they're all going to get that update, which is nice, right? Now, you know that that's where that's gonna happen because of the use of BIM. That's only gonna happen on the inner that is inside of content section pop-up. So the names of, this is the great thing about BIM, like the names of the classes inform you as to where those changes are going to take place. So every instance of this exact frame, of this exact little inner content thing, that's the only area that this is gonna apply to. Now, some people will say, let me put this back to grid gap. Some people will say that they only wanna affect this one, right? I don't wanna affect all of them. I just wanna affect this one right here. Well, if that's the case, then turn off the class and then right click, add your grid gap and do ×2. And so now I have my bigger gap on this one, but all of my other ones are left alone because now I'm styling at the ID level and IDs are unique to every single instance. So you have the power to control one-off instances by themselves, but you also have the power to affect all of them globally. The difference is, are you styling the class or are you styling the ID, right? Does that answer your question, Terrence? If it doesn't, you can ask again in a different way, or maybe give me a specific example, and I'm happy to revisit. But I think that that's what you were talking about. Not sure, okay? Let me know. Grant says, as a beginner, do I need frames for Figma? Why does everyone keep talking about it, asking for it? You do need it if you are going to follow like a truly professional workflow. Figma is a design tool, right? Let me stop sharing my screen for a second because I don't know what Figma is gonna open. And there are some secret things that you're not allowed to see in terms of what's being developed and worked on. And we need to make sure that we have a blank slate here. Create new design file that is safe to share. Okay, great. So in Figma, right? I can go frame and we can go like 1920, something like this. Let's not go that big. Let's go 1440, okay? Let's make it manageable. And I could just start like with my layouts in here, like playing with design. I can play with design. I don't have to worry about classes, making a mess of my database, content, CPTs, I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. I get to freely play with design, wireframing, content, try this, try that, get feedback from the client, do this, do that differently, make all these without worrying about any technical development work, which is really, really, really nice. This is how the design process in web design should work. Okay, you shouldn't rush to your development environment to start piecing things together on a new project. A new project should ideally start in a design tool where first you're going to map out the architecture of the website, like we talked about last week. Using Figma's mind mapping tool is a really good way to do that. And then you're going to start wireframing. The wireframing should be done in Figma. The problem is, and by the way, you charge for the wireframes. So, you know, there's a way for you to make more money doing a process that's more professional. And so you start doing the wireframes, but then you realize, man, this wireframing from scratch takes a long time. It'd be way better if I just had a library of frames that we could use to wireframe. And then you could rapidly wireframe. And so that's what Frames allows you to do, rapidly wireframe. And then you're putting in content, things like that. And then you move into the design phase, which is you go from low fidelity to high fidelity, okay? That needs to be done in Figma also, should be done in Figma also. And so you need a way to do that like with a framework. And so how do you do that? Well, ACSS tokens, which are embedded in frames for Figma. So it's like two products in one. Essentially, we built automatic CSS for Figma. And so you're able to design in Figma using automatic CSS, which then maps over to the development side of things. You use the same frames, the same settings, and you build rapidly once all the design is done. But and you can watch my video on frames. I have a few videos on frames for Figma, why it's important, why it matters, how it works. I would recommend watching those, obviously. But this is a professional workflow. A professional workflow is you use a design tool for design and planning. You use a development tool for development, okay? And that's the cleanest, most efficient way to go from point A to point D, okay? Then you launch the website and everything's nice and clean. It's just, that's the best workflow. So we built the tools that enable that workflow. And if you follow that workflow, I've written numerous blog posts on this, you should also be increasing the amount of your projects a significant amount, okay? Because right now, most people are running to a development tool and they're only charging for the concept of web design. They're not charging for wireframes. Well, they're not charging for discovery, which should be the first thing you charge for. So you should charge for discovery. Then you should charge for wireframing. Then you should charge for content and content planning. Then you should charge for design. Then you should charge for development, right? This is how... That's the workflow that's really required to do the job really well. And so that's how it should be built out as well. You follow that process, you bill for the process, you make more money, your clients get a better result, everybody's happy. Okay, that's the quick and dirty of it. All right, let's see. Don't know if you still want to do a video about it. Why do we put the width of 50 characters in width in bricks instead of max width? Great question, Nell Media. Thank you for reminding me. I did want to cover that. Okay, let's go to clear this out. So get all these instances gone, put a section in, drop a, let's do text. Okay, we were talking about this last week. Let's go to website ipsum.com, grab all of this, okay, and come back and put that in. Let's do rich text. Okay. Bang, 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 bang. It doesn't actually matter that this is content or anything like that. Could be an image, could be a lot of things, okay? We're gonna talk about width versus max width. That's really what the question is about. So when you go into layout, you go to sizing, you're gonna see width and you're gonna see max width. Okay, in actual web design, if you were writing your own CSS, if you were coding from scratch, if you were whatever, you would learn that max width is the thing you should most often adjust, okay? Block elements are 100% width by default, right? So you would want to put a max width on them, and here's why. Let's say 50 characters, okay? So the max width is 50 characters, meaning that block can't get bigger than 50 characters wide. However, it is allowed to get smaller because I'm not saying what the width should be. I'm saying what the max width should be, which means the width is able to flow wherever it needs to flow within that 50 character limit. So it can be smaller than 50 characters, but it can't be bigger because max width is a max, okay? Makes sense? All right, we're all on the same page. Now, if I take this and I say 50 characters, in the width field, what am I saying? I am telling that block to explicitly be 50 characters, unless you're in bricks. Because these page builders, they try to help you as a beginner. They're like, beginners aren't gonna know the difference between width and max width. See, in a real coding environment, if you tell that block to be 50 characters and you try to make the screen smaller, guess what that block's gonna do? It's gonna be like, I can't get smaller. I'm not allowed to. You told me to be 50 characters. I'm gonna be 50 characters. I don't care what the screen's doing. And it'll actually cause overflow, right? Which is why everybody who actually writes CSS by hand would put a max width of 50 characters and not worry about the width, because then it would be responsive. It would shrink. It's allowed to shrink. Whereas if you say width 50 characters, it technically is not allowed to shrink. It's not allowed to shrink. And so what Bricks did is Bricks said, beginners are not gonna know that. So what we'll do is we will put a max width of 100% on every element known to man. Every element that they could possibly add to a website, we'll put a max width of 100% because we know they're gonna use the width field. And what this does is it saves users from overflow. But what it also does is for advanced users, it just confuses us because we're like, that's not how things are done. That's not how things have been done for decades. That's backwards. And it actually, from a logic standpoint, doesn't actually make a lot of sense because you're using the properties wrong, okay? You're using them the way they weren't intended to be used. But and it's hard for me to explain the logic because I'm dyslexic, but I wrote it out. And when I write it out, it's actually, it makes sense, okay? I'll find the write-up and link to it somewhere, probably in one of the communities. You can go read my write-up on why it's backwards. But it's not inconsequential. Here's the important thing. So in automatic CSS, we try to allow people to go to typography, for example, and set a default max width on their text. So if I went to all text, and I went to max width, I could set a max width here. Or you could do it on M text or L text. You can change the max width sizes, whatever. And this is because you never want to be in this situation where your text stretches all the way across the screen. It's bad, right? So let's pretend that I was able to put a cap of 50 characters on my text. It would look like this. Now people are like, but that doesn't look good because you have a lot of white space over here. Exactly. This is alerting you to we can't, okay, this is what's funny to me. It's like, people are like, but that's a new problem. It's not. You actually started with a problem. The problem you started with is you put multi-paragraphs of text in a gigantic container. That was your first problem, okay? Most people solve this problem, let me bring in a frame, by doing actual design techniques. This is what normally solves the problem. So where is that section we just had? Content section, Papa. So I bring this in. Look at this. Is this a problem? No, it's not. Why is this not a problem? I didn't do anything to this text. I didn't set a max or anything like that. So why is this not a problem? Because it has media next to it. It has something of visual interest next to it, which does the job of containing the content. Nothing is containing the content here. So what we would say is never let content, the principle is never let paragraph content like this get beyond 60 or 70 characters wide because it's horrible for readability. There's been major studies on this, horrible for readability, and it just looks bad. It looks terrible. This looks very amateur. And so if we have a rule that we're never going to allow content to be bigger than 60 or 70 characters or whatever we want it to be, let's say 60, right? When this happens, that's not the fault of the limit. That's not the fault of the character limit. That's a fault of your layout. It's alerting you to yes, dog, that doesn't look good. It didn't look good before we did this. It's showing you need to do something else with this layout, okay? And it's respecting the principle that content should never get wider than that limit, okay? So we can't do this. The point I was getting at, we can't actually do this in bricks. because this requires max width. And if the minute we go down here and we override or we put a value of something in the max width property, we're overriding the 100% that's there. Now you can fix this by going over here and putting 100% width on certain things, but there are numerous edge cases where this causes overflow and actually breaks layouts. And so there is no workaround. I've literally tried every single one. There is no workaround to allow the user to set a default global max width on text that doesn't break things. Because of Brix's decision to do things backwards and save users, okay, save beginners, all right, by doing this little backwards trick that they do. Setting every element to a max width of 100% should not be done by the page builder. This is not something that should happen. There's an open discussion in the Brix forum about this, that this is, and if they want to do it, fine, put it behind a feature flag. Put it behind I should opt in and say, I'm a beginner, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You can please save me in these certain situations, but I understand that there may be consequences, right? And then for everybody that knows what max width and width is, you can turn that shit off because it just causes problems. And it's backwards. That's what should happen. That's the explanation. Let me run to the chat real quick out of the questions and just see if people are we confused by this? Did I explain it okay? Okay. All right. People talking about WordCamp. It's always a good side discussion. Okay. Nobody has any comments on that particularly, so we'll move on. All right. Next question. Let's see. That one was answered. Okay. That one was answered. Okay, good. Under what circumstances would you recommend it is beneficial to set default sections to content grid in ACSS? There is no scenario other than you want to be cutting edge. You want to be bleeding edge of like modern web design, and you understand content grid really well and what it's capable of doing, and you're going to take full advantage of what it offers. That's it. There's no other reason why you would enable that by default. The setting they're talking about is right here. So if I go to layout and I go to content grid, it is default sections to content grid right here, which fundamentally changes the structure of sections. So we go from using flex with a centered inner container to using grid with a content grid layout system that allows you to do a lot of fun and cool things that are not really super possible with the traditional flex model, but it does require you to understand. Now you can go to the documentation on content grid and you can read it. You can watch my videos on content grid, and then you can play with content grid. It is a new concept, okay? Not many people are talking about it. Not many people are doing it. No other framework has it. If you leave this switch off, you can still use content grid. You just have to use it with a utility class instead of defaulting sections to content grid, right? So yes, and I've shown some cool things that content grid does that is not easy to do or fun to do in the traditional model. It's really, really, really powerful, especially when you get into inheriting content grid, because it actually, content grid can be applied to children and grandchildren and do cool things with that. Especially in Gutenberg, when you are limited with your canvas and your tools, content grid can do things that the normal layout system is not able to achieve in that regard, like breaking content out of its containers. So yes, it's very powerful, but you have to understand what it's doing or it's just going to be confusing, which is why it's off by default. Okay, let's see. Apart from the, okay. Do you have any good practice for a sticky header, but with a top bar, which itself should scroll out of the viewport in Brix? Yeah, Brix isn't really set up for doing that. So you have to manually configure the sticky. So you bring in a header with 2 rows, and then you have to write the CSS to make the second row stick and leave the first row alone. Brix's sticky header control effectively just targets the entire header template. So yeah, you gotta do that a little bit manually. I could probably do a tutorial video on it. It's probably a little bit out of the scope of this live stream because we'd spend a little too much time on it. We would not get to other questions, but I could do a video on it. You said it's better to make a video instead of blogs to promote web design business. What videos do you have in mind? Man, there's so many concepts. It's like, pick your poison, come up with something creative. But in general, you need something that appeals to business owners. You need something that without being general business advice, because there's a gazillion channels on that. It's got to be something that shows off your skills at the exact same time, allows you to demonstrate how you work and the kind of work that you do and the kind of work that you're capable of. Which reminds me, I'm going to forget this if we don't do this otherwise. So I'm starting the new UI style guide for frames. It's a spacing alpha, I think. So I'm going to show you this. And in the inner circle, if you're an inner circle person, and I would highly recommend just join for this, okay? I started a series in the inner circle called Learn JavaScript with Kevin. And I'm starting to move into the territory of, I don't think you need to master a JavaScript framework like React or Svelte or Vue or anything like this. If you're gonna build like software applications and stuff, that would probably be a necessity. But if you're gonna do just web design stuff in general, I do think you should know the basics of JavaScript, okay? And I've made that decision on my own, which is why I'm learning it and why I'm doing this series called Learn JavaScript with Kevin. Again, I don't think you need to be an expert in JavaScript, but you have to understand basic things because part of our job does end up requiring JavaScript to certain degrees, okay? Like I showed, let's get rid of this and this because we're done with those questions. This layout right here, which has a code block that I have to activate, and then I have to activate this loop to tell it what media gallery to pull from. But we can look at oh, actually I can get a link right here. We can look at the live version of it. Okay, this layout right here requires JavaScript, okay? It doesn't look like it does, but it does. And I did a tutorial on the JavaScript that's required for this and how to do it and how to write it from scratch, because you will run into scenarios like this where JavaScript is required and, it's good if you can just solve it on your own. And so I'm doing this Learn JavaScript with Kevin series, which I think is really fantastic, but I wanted to show you this layout I was working on because this is gonna be the next video in the series. It's called Spacing Alpha. Let's go to preview. Just go to this on the front end, okay? So this is what I built. So we have essentially two different sections that visualize, this is for the UI style guide for automatic CSS, visualize the values of our spacing variables and our section spacing variables. And it gives you the tokens over here. It gives you the visual over here of how much space each of these things is. And then it actually gives you the computed pixel value of the rendering of that space, right? Which is cool. And what I did is I did this all with JavaScript essentially. So if we look at the template, let's go look at the template. You're gonna see that these are essentially blank boxes. There's nothing in here other than the header, okay? And then the rows and the row. And I'm using some unique concepts here. Let's go ahead and let's get rid of this. I just wanted to preview this for you guys real quick. Let's go to the front end and inspect. Okay, so if you look at like even this concept in itself, a lot of people don't even know that you can do this, don't even know that this is valid HTML. But you're able to create custom HTML elements like just by defining them, like just literally you could do this in bricks. Okay, so if you look over here, this row, I used a custom tag called spacing group row. And then in here, and what this is a way to have, like they all have a custom class on them, but they all have this other identifier, which is their custom HTML tag name. Plus they have data attributes on them. And all this stuff helps tremendously, I've found, when writing your JavaScript for various reasons. But if you notice, like I have a blank row, a blank label wrapper, a blank value wrapper, and a blank spacer wrapper. And what the JavaScript does is it actually loops through an extensions list, which is XS, SM, L, XL, XXL. It appends whatever I want it to append, which for this table is space and for this table is section space. It then takes that generated token and uses it to set the width of these visual elements. Then it measures the width of these visual elements and outputs that in the actual value field. And then what it does beyond that is it sits there and watches and it waits to see if the width of these things change, because then you can go in and you can go to spacing and you can go to section spacing and you can start doing this. And not only will, I mean, the visual thing growing just happens by default because I'm changing the value of the spacing variable, but the calculation itself is changing in real time because it's watching that block. And it's like, hey, if that block changes, I'm gonna quickly recalculate things and I'm gonna show the new calculation on the front end. And so this is just an aspect of like the visual, the UI style guide that is well beyond the 1.0 version of the style guide. And you know, this stuff is not possible without JavaScript. So I do think it's fun to learn. Like when you start to get the hang of it, it actually is really, really, really fun to learn JavaScript. So this is gonna be the next video. I'm gonna build this from scratch, and I do it like all my other videos. Like if you wanna learn JavaScript in like plain language and just like, hey, here's what you need to know. Here's the order you need to learn it in and to solve these problems. Here's what everything does. Here's what everything means. The point of this is it's not a like JavaScript course, and it's not a let's make it say hello world and that kind of shit. Like I get a real challenge and then we solve the real challenge together and I walk you step by step through how it's done. So really, really, really valuable stuff that's going down in the inner circle. But yeah, that's where that is. Okay, let's get back to answering questions. Let's get out of here before I break something. Okay. And let's get back into, where did I lost my, here we go. My dev environment that we were in. Okay, let's go back to pages and let's edit the home page. All right, next question. Can you break the query loop to place other content in the middle of the loop? Oh, good question. Really good question. So if you know PHP and that side of things really well, it's best to create a generic, like a custom loop, I would say. But there is a workaround if you don't know how to do that. There is a downside to the workaround though, okay? Let's go to, okay, maybe the best way to do this is, because I don't want to build something from scratch. Let's look at this for a second. Okay. This might work. Let's go to edit with bricks. I think if we look at this, it's been a while since I built this. Profile card. I would imagine, yeah, there's an attribute, data team member, data team category. If we look at the actual DOM here, so let's look at me as an example. So here's my card, and you can see it right here, profile card. And it says the team category is leadership. The data team member is Kevin Geary. Okay, so I'm outputting everybody's name in the code as an attribute, and I'm outputting the category that they're in into the code as an attribute, okay? And so what this would allow you to do as an example is, let's take Christoph, right? Okay, let's take Christoph. Data team member is our attribute. Okay, let's go back into our builder. Now, the problem is Bricks doesn't render this properly in the builder, so you're not gonna be able to see it in the builder. Let's go to team grid. I can just affect this team grid right here. Okay, I wish the inspector would stay up. I think it was called data team member. Yeah, data team member, okay. All right, let's go back in. So we're gonna say data team member equals Christoph Sands. Let's make this case insensitive, okay? And let's just try order -1, and let's see if we can get that to output, okay? I might already be ordering myself -1. Let's do -100 and just see It also does help if you get the syntax right, like colons in CSS, semicolon, those things turns out they're fairly important. All right, why is that? Why is Christoph not moving? Let's see. See, now we have to inspect, figure out what's going on. Team, because data team category, if they're in the development, they're already ordered -30. So now we have a conflicting rule here. Okay, because there was already order stuff being applied. What I'm going to do is fast forward here for you. The downside to this is that when I'm going to select different elements, now these aren't actually clickable, okay? But if they were clickable, it's actually good that they're not clickable, because if they're not clickable, you can do this. If they are clickable, it changes the order of the keyboard focus. So remember, the order property is only visual. It doesn't change the actual underlying code base. So selecting elements with the keyboard goes in the order of where they are in the DOM. So naturally, you would think that it would get Kevin first, and then Matteo, and then Tommy, and then Waji, and you would go in an order. But if you visually change the order of these things to plug something into the middle or put it at the beginning, it'll actually focus on the true first item first and not the visual first item, which screws up, that's not accessible. So that breaks accessibility. So the rule is, if they're not clickable, you can get away with this order thing. If they are clickable, actually, I think even just reading it might break accessibility in some cases. So you have to be careful with it. Which goes back to my original thing, which was you're gonna need to write a custom loop, okay? So that injects something every certain amount of instances, because the loop actually generates the underlying code. We don't wanna visually change the order of things unless we absolutely have to. You want to change the underlying code, which would require a custom loop. So I know that's the bad answer, because now you've got to go learn about PHP and writing custom loops and all this other stuff. But that is the correct answer. In some cases, you can get away with the order property visually, like here, but I've got other rules that are in place. And if I go too far into this, I've got to undo it. This is a live site. This is not going to be a great situation. So I don't want to do that. And at the end of the day, it's not the correct way to do it because of those accessibility issues that we just discussed. Okay, but that is the theory of how you could potentially do that, but you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. All right, let's go to, will Control-C, Control-V, copy and paste ever be able to work properly with ACSS? Bricks hijacks this currently, but is the #1 thing that slows me down right now after decades of muscle memory. It is annoying. It is a really good point. I don't think so. So just to explain to everybody, if you have the builder open like this and you want to paste a value in this input or any input or whatever, maybe like box shadow, go to like additional styling, go to box shadows. Here we go, right here. I want to get rid of this. I want to Control V and I want to see it's not pasting anything that's on my keyboard. Nothing. Why? Why is this happening? Well, Bricks, being the builder, needs to hijack those controls to do stuff like this. Command-C, Command-V, copy, duplicate things. And so nothing else that lives in the builder is able to use, and I actually think this is a bad decision on Bricks' part. I understand why they did it, but the browser itself uses Command-C and like, these are operating system shortcuts. Bricks decided, well, we're gonna hijack those and use them for ourselves, for our own thing. What they should have done is created a new shortcut for this, like Shift-Command-C, Shift-Command-V, whatever, like a Bricks-specific shortcut for copying and pasting, because then that would have left the browser commands alone, which means that other applications running can use those operating system shortcuts, right? But Bricks decided, no, they're not gonna do that. They're gonna hijack the operating system shortcuts for themselves, and thus nobody else can use them for anything. That's got to talk to Bricks about that. But they're not going to change it now, because then everybody has to learn new shortcuts, and it's an unwinnable fight. It's just one of those things that probably shouldn't have been done initially like that in the first place. And it's annoying. You're right. It is annoying. But however, you can still go to box shadows, right click and hit paste, and that will work for sure. It's just that the keyboard shortcut has been hijacked by Bricks, and there's nothing we can do about it. that I know of and that my team knows of. So we're SOL in that regard, as they say. Can you break? Okay, we did that one. What's the difference between basic text and rich text? Fantastic question. Let's go add text, basic text, rich text. Okay, rich text. There we go. Let's put them in a container so they're actually, and let's bring that container up here. I don't know why we had two of them. Man, those two things look very similar, don't they? I can understand why a beginner would be like, what the hell? that doesn't seem to, like, why are there two? Okay, let's go to the front end. So out of the box, there is a difference. If we right click. So the first thing is the text element. You can see Brixie text basic. Look at this, is a div. Now, I actually don't think this should be the case, but we'll talk about this. The second one is the rich text. And notice it has a paragraph inside of it where the basic does not. So with basic, you get no paragraph out of the box. You get a div, which shouldn't be the case. That's dumb. This should be a paragraph out of the box. Now, let's go look at the next thing. So we're gonna go back in here and we are going to change that to a paragraph. So we're gonna specifically say that that should be a paragraph. Now, is there a difference? Yes, there's still a difference. There's still multiple differences, in fact. So if I inspect this, now Brixie text basic is just a P with content inside of it. And the rich text is still a P that is wrapped in a div. So one difference is the rich text is always wrapped in a div. And you have the P inside of it, right? Whereas this P is not wrapped in a div. This div is the container that contains both of those things. Why is there, hold on. Let me go here. Why is there that extra thing? Rich text, oh, because it's not in the container. Okay, save. We need them to both be in the same, then it'll make more visual sense. Okay, so let's inspect this. There we go, all right. So now you can see them side by side. So here's the container, because I know a lot of people are like, they have no idea how to read what we're looking at right now. So I'm trying to make it as less confusing as possible. This is the container. I open the container, I have a P and a div, right? The div is the rich text element. It puts the P inside of itself, right? It renders a div, it puts the paragraph inside of the div. So there is a fundamental difference in the code output. Now, why does that matter? Well, watch this. We're gonna go grab this lorem ipsum. So this is automatic CSS, ipsum short, okay. Guess not. Let's go to website ipsum. All right, let's grab this. I want all these paragraphs. Let's go back into the builder and bang, let's put them in. Then let's put all those same exact paragraphs in there and let's space these things out so you can see them. Oh, none of my things are working. Okay, save. Let's refresh. Okay. It actually doesn't know that we've saved. Okay, I don't know what Brix is up to. I will say 1.9.9, guys, 1.9 has some issues. 1.9.9 has some issues. Let's refresh the whole builder and see if we can get back to some sort of functional working thing here. Okay, do I have right click now? I have right click now. Do I have ipsum again? I still don't have that. Okay, you have to investigate that. All right, so you see a big difference, don't you? All right, let's go to the front end. Should see a huge difference. One of these things accepts multiple paragraphs, the other does not, right? So if we look in here, what is going on? Because I pasted multiple paragraphs and it just puts it as just a giant chunk of text, okay? Whereas the rich text element, look how it has processed all of those paragraphs. It's actually generated the paragraphs properly, okay? So big, big, big difference, which means that if you're gonna go use the basic text element, let's go down to one. Oh, I can't even go down to, yeah, I can. I can go down to one paragraph. Let's find it. Let's just cut it off right there. Get rid of this, okay? You have to essentially say that if you're gonna use basic text, it's gotta be a single paragraph, that's it, okay? Now, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Well, there are a lot of instances where you only want one paragraph ever. That's all you ever want. For example, if I was building a card, okay? You just gotta kind of know the situation and choose the right tool for the situation. So let's bring in feature section Yankee here. And look at right here. This card is using a basic text element. Why? We don't want to support multiple paragraphs. This is not a situation where you should ever put multiple paragraphs in. The card is designed to have one paragraph and one paragraph only. And so the basic text element actually helps us in this regard. It naturally limits our ability to put multiple paragraphs where they shouldn't be. Okay, so it's actually really good to use it here, and you change the tag to a P and it outputs a nice clean P. But anything that needs rich text, you would want to use the rich text element, because there's another part of the rich text element. See, even things that seem so simple, just they need a lot of different explanations. Look what you can also do in rich text. All right, you can create lists, okay? You can put images. You can float images. You can't do that in any other part of the page builder, not easily anyway, not predictably. Anything up here, you could put block quotes in. You can do a lot of different stuff, and you can put multiple instances of like this is bold and this is not bold. You can flow multiple paragraphs if you use columns, right? You could span them across. Oh, that's call span. We need call count too. Look how you can, like, that's not one paragraph here, one paragraph over here, and like a grid. That's like a one block of paragraphs being flowed naturally into multiple columns, okay? Rich text, really, really, really good for this. There's a lot of things that rich text can do that basic text can't, but there are some situations where you actually want basic text because you want to limit what can be done in that situation. So it's two viable tools, knowing when to use one and when to use the other, essentially, and understanding how they behave and their differences is important. Not just winging it and be like, well, I guess maybe rich text here. You want to know exactly what it's doing, which is why we're doing these live streams, which is why we're doing these videos. Okay. Please recreate your Geary.co blog post template in bricks. Geary.co. Well, you don't need to recreate it. It's a frame. You can just add it as a frame. But that, again, that would probably, it's too long to spend. We're not going to get to people's questions if we spend too much time. What platform do you use for icons and images for commercial use in your projects? Icons, I use Huge Icons. Really like this library a lot. Yeah, it's super simple, clean. They have duotone, they have two-tone. They're all super consistent. The sizing is all really well done. Solids, stroke sharp, solid sharp. They got a lot of variations. Really extensive library. You can almost always find, like, I mean, it's gonna take a while to load. You could just keep going and keep going. You can go for days. You would call it huge, I think. Okay, all right. Sorry, that's my one dad joke for the day. Soccer or BJJ, which you prefer? What? This is not even a question. Soccer, I'm gonna offend all the Europeans on here, but soccer's it's not that exciting. I mean, maybe a little bit. There's some times everybody's getting riled up. There's some times where it's exciting. American football is much more. It's much more versatile. Much more. Like, there's so much more to it. So much more to it. And then BJJ is now. If you don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, don't watch jiu-jitsu. Like, it's not going to be exciting to watch jiu-jitsu. Just like, football is not all that exciting. Either version is not all that exciting if you don't know the sport. If you don't know what's going on. Like, I don't ever watch fucking cricket. Like, I don't know how cricket works. Like, people watching cricket could be they're the most excited they've ever been in their life, and I don't know what the fuck's going on, so I'm not excited about cricket. Same thing with jiu-jitsu, but jiu-jitsu is if you know it, the intricacies of it and it's almost limitless. It's like chess that has a gazillion moves, and you could use those moves at any time. It's very dynamic. So. And the other person has about, a split second to respond to that thing you've decided to do now. And very, very small details matter tremendously. Okay. The short answer is BJJ for sure. I have a hard time to be comfortable with bricks as my page builder. I'm still using GeneratePress and would like to know where I should start to switch finally over. It's, you know, you're coming from Generate, which is not really a page builder, right? It's a completely different environment. It's Gutenberg. Like if you were coming from Elementor to bricks, that would actually be an easier switch, I think. If you're coming from Oxygen to bricks, very easy switch. If you're coming from Divi to bricks, maybe probably a little bit more of a jump because Divi's interface is so radically different, right? And that's the problem you're having with coming from Gutenberg. I think that one is you don't just say, I want to learn bricks, okay? You should say, I want to build something in bricks. Like just get a basic landing page and just build the landing page in bricks. And then what I would actually do is build it again and again and again, the same one. Build the same one like 5 times. And you can actually use a different approach each time. I just did a video on the ACSS channel. I'm actually going to do one on this channel that you're watching right now, this week probably, which is, it's going to be a comparison of 3 different workflows: ID styling workflow, class first workflow, BEM workflow. So 3, I'm going to build the same exact thing 3 different ways. Okay. It's just going to be a section, simple section, but I'm then going to show you the pros and cons of every single one, right? And I would do that when learning bricks. Like, okay, let me style everything at the ID level and just, you know, not worry about classes right now, not worry about all that extra stuff. Let me just style everything. I know this is wrong, but I just want to do it this way. And you'll familiarize yourself with where are things located. You know, where's the padding box? Where's the width box? Okay. And you can just block out all the other, like use static values. Don't worry about tokens. Don't worry about, just build it wrong, but just build it. Okay. Then build it again and say, okay, but this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to use classes and I'm going to learn and I'm going to watch a video on BEM or something like that. I have a video on BEM on this channel. And I'm just going to build with BEM and I'm just going to make it maintainable this time. So I'm going to make it more scalable, more maintainable. But doing this, I'm going to learn, okay, how do you apply classes in bricks, activating classes versus not activating classes, attaching custom CSS to classes. There's more things you can pick up. And then you're going to get more comfortable, right? And you're not having to learn how to do a different layout. You already did the layout. You're just doing the layout differently. And then you're going to do it again. And I would say now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build that same layout with a framework behind it. We had this discussion last week. Dave Foy believes this. I believe this. I think many other people are in agreement that you should learn web design using a framework. A CSS framework, like automatic CSS, because of the structure that it gives you, the best practices that it gives you, and the workflow that it teaches you. You'll learn faster. You will learn faster and you'll have more of an understanding of what's going on. And then you can start to branch out and learn more CSS and things like that. And I don't even know your CSS knowledge level or your HTML knowledge level. Obviously, the more you know already, the easier it is for you to adapt to a page builder, which is the last point I'll make before moving on to the next question. If you want to learn web design, never in a million years should you open Elementor to learn web design, or Divi to learn web design, or Generate actually is not bad in this regard. But let's just use those 2 builders as an example. Those are the 2 biggest builders anyway, so that's fine. Elementor, Divi. You can't learn web design using them. You can't. It's not really possible. They don't output code the right way. They don't use a real workflow. When you learn on those tools, what you are learning is how to assemble pages, web pages, with that specific tool. You are not learning any fundamental. They don't call the things their real names. They have cute names for everything. So you're not learning the language of web design. That was my whole point of Page Building 101, is you should not learn a builder. And the good thing about bricks, the reason I'm using this argument with bricks, the good thing about bricks is that it uses the language of web design. And it outputs the code that you would output if you were writing the code yourself, for the most part. It makes some stupid decisions like the width max width thing, but that's, you know, it's minor. Relative, like if we compare that to what Elementor does or what Divi does, that's a minor inconvenience, okay? For the most part, Bricks speaks the language of web design. So if you know the language of web design, you could pick up Bricks and just start using it. You know exactly what it's doing and why it's doing it. If you pick up Oxygen, Oxygen uses the language of web design. If you pick up Webflow, Webflow uses the language of web design. You could just pick these tools up if you know web design and start using them. The block editor does not use the language of web design. Divi does not use the language of web design. Elementor does not use the language of web design. So many builders do not use all of these block systems, okay? Blocksy and these do not use the language of web design. So a beginner can pick them up and learn them and learn the language of that system, but they're not learning web design. And an advanced user, like somebody who's spent a lot of time in web design and knows the fundamentals of web design, is put off by those tools. They would not want to use those tools. So the people advocating for like Elementor are people who learned Elementor and now they advocate for, you're not gonna see this very often, probably very, very, very rare. There's somebody who really understands deeply the fundamentals of web design would be attracted to Elementor and promote Elementor. That's just, it's not really gonna happen. There might be an edge case out there. I don't know. I never say something for 100% certain, but it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make, because it doesn't speak the language of web design. So if the more you know about web design, the more comfortable you're going to be in Bricks by default. Another somewhat long answer to a simple question. Okay. Favorite Gracie brother. I mean, it's very easy. So I've actually met Hinner and Hiren Gracie multiple times. Did a seminar with Hiren. I really like Hinner. I like Hinner's. I like his. If you're on the inside, you know what I'm about to say. I like his Hinergy. Okay, it's fucking stupid. It's so fucking stupid. Okay, I really like Hinner. I just like his whole. He's a vibe. He's a vibe. But Hoist, it's got to go to Hoist because none of this would exist. The UFC probably wouldn't exist. Jiu-Jitsu as we know it would not exist if Hoist hadn't have done what Hoist did in the early days of the UFC. So you have to give it to Hoist. But yeah, there's a lot of Gracies that I like. I just like Hinner and Hiren, like, you know, and what they've done for the sport and the art and all of that. So that's my answer. Gordon Ryan or Felipe. Gordon Ryan is the GOAT. Like there's no denying it. You can like or not like his attitude. Nobody's fucking with Gordon Ryan. So it's just, it's not even I go with Gordon. When setting a transparent sticky header in Bricks, the background is the website's background. What's the best way to extend the hero section so that it reaches the top? It's not extending the hero section so that it reaches the top. It is, it should already be there, essentially. Let's go into the builder and, well, here's a header right here that we can use. We're gonna have to add something to this section. Let's just pop in a hero. So let's go hero. And let's use something like Hero Hotel, maybe. Okay, perfect. All right, so now let's hop over to our header and let's just enable sticky. Okay, page settings, template settings, header, sticky header, boom. It does help if you go to populate content. I hate how Bricks' search here works. You got to go single post, then you can find your homepage. Okay, let's apply preview here. Okay, there you go right there. Now, we're just going to leave it like that. I know it's ugly, but it essentially shows us what we wanted to see. There we go. Let's home. I just want like one instance of this open. Okay, so it hasn't actually done anything to the hero section. The hero section is where the hero section always was. What it did is it took the header out of the flow of the document. So the header is no longer able to push content down. And the header is now just sitting on top of the hero section that's there. And so what this does do is it causes a fundamental spacing issue across your website. And I think that's what you're referring to. And what you don't want to move the hero section down. Like it might seem like that's what you want to do. That's not what you want to do. You could fix it by changing the padding value in this hero section, but that actually doesn't work all that well either, because remember, this header exists on almost every page of your website, which is another area of complication because you need the ability to turn off how you're managing this versus turn on, depending on if the header's sticky or not sticky. There's a lot of scenarios. The one thing you need to know as a beginner, if we're talking to beginners here, I know sticky headers are cool. They do almost nothing for usability. They cause lots of problems. If you want more headaches on your project, use a sticky header. That's all you're doing. You're opting in for a bunch of headaches, okay? And then so what I ask all the time, if we're gonna add a bunch of headaches to a project, I ask, what is the benefit that I'm getting in exchange for these headaches? And it turns out with a sticky header, not fucking much. Not much, okay? People will here, you can't even, let's just duplicate this a bunch of times. Because we have to be able to scroll, right? Okay, so, did I just duplicate the header? Let's not do that. I thought I was in the actual page. Okay, let's go, home, there we go. Hero Hotel. Let's just duplicate you a bunch of times. All right, so now we should be able to scroll our page. Let's refresh. Come on, InstaWP. You can do it. Okay. Obviously, it's going to look terrible, but we can scroll. And so people will be like, well, when I'm down here at the bottom of the page, I can still see the navigation. Well, I can just flick my mouse and get to the top. I know where the navigation is. There's also tends to be a footer navigation, but mainly this shit is distracting. It's taking up real estate. On a phone, there's not a lot of real estate on a phone, okay? You're taking up a precious amount of real estate on the person's mobile device. A lot of times they wish it wasn't there. They can flick to the top and get to the top where the nav is in an instant if they need to. And we have all these headaches that this thing, I just avoid them. I really don't like them. If you really need to have them, then you just have to opt into the headaches that they cause. Now, let's go to the front. We talked about this spacing issue right here and how to resolve it. One way to resolve it is you get the height of your header, okay? Let's get the calculated height. Looks like 75 pixels. About, you don't even have to be perfect. And you toggle this thing on that says offset content automatically, and you tell automatic CSS what the height of your header is, and now you get perfect balance between here and here across all your pages. And if you happen to have a bunch of pages that don't use a sticky header, you can come in and tell us what pages those are, and we won't do that on those pages. And this is just an automatic fix. It's just like that. It's all the headaches just went away, and I'm good to go. So automatic CSS fixes all those headaches, but if you don't have that, then you've got to find a way to fix them. And I'll just tell you, it's a pain in the ass. There's a lot of edge cases that you have to consider. It's a big pain in the ass. So step number 1, don't opt into headaches that don't actually provide you any value. Step 2, if you do have to opt into headaches that don't provide you any value, have something that fixes it like that. That'd be my suggestion. Okay, let's see. When using bricks and Gutenberg, we'll use block editor for page building, screw anything for brick stuff. IOW, I can't remember what IOW means. Gutenberg is for blog posts. No, it will not. So if we go into Gutenberg, pages, add new page. I don't want to spend too much time on this because it's, ACSS specific. Publish. This is a page, right? Let's do options, Gutenberg, and here, use block editor for page building. I don't even know what install we're dealing with here. Okay, this is what happens when you use the block editor for page building. Essentially, everything goes to a blank canvas, full width. Now you're in a situation where you go here and you need to start using, just like you do in bricks, add a section, add a div, add a this, add a that, start building your page, or use patterns, or use Gutenbricks or something like that. You're free to do all of that here from scratch. And you're gonna get, here's the class first workflow, as you can see. You're gonna get live preview on everything, but you're stuck working with these stupid, generic blocks, or maybe you've brought in like generate or something like that that's actually capable of page building. And you can do all of this. So you're good to go. The question was, does that now affect, let's not save that. Does that affect blog posts? So we go to posts and we go to hello world. Okay. No, the answer is no. So your blog posts are not affected because use Gutenberg for page building. This is not a page, so we don't affect that, no. Now, there are custom post types, gosh, that are posts, all right? And you might wanna use custom post types for page building. Another scenario, an edge case, like services, right? So we edit this. Notice it's not affected by default, but you can go into automatic CSS and say, hey, by the way, my plumbing post type, my services post type, I want to use that for page building. You just tell that to automatic CSS, and then automatic CSS will go, oh, okay. And then it'll do that full width, like make it for page building kind of scenario. There is a fundamental flaw that I wrote a long diatribe about in Gutenberg, in the sense that Gutenberg exists, the block editor exists in posts, pages, custom post types. It can be used for none of those scenarios. Like you could just use the block editor to output to dynamic data in a template somewhere. And the fundamental flaw of the block editor is that there is no way to inform the block editor of where its content is going to live. That is a fundamental architectural flaw, because the block editor needs to behave differently depending on where the content is gonna go, and you can't inform it of where it's going to go. Thus, you can't change its behavior the way you need to. Thus, the block editor is it's a dumb environment. Like that's not an insult. It's like, it's dumb in what it knows, in what it's informed of, because you can't inform it of anything. So it's just a bad scenario. It was not thought through in how this thing needs to work. And it creates a lot of problems and, just headaches. And again, I say, if you're gonna introduce all these headaches, what is the value that I'm gonna get in exchange for dealing with these headaches? And it turns out nothing. You're not gonna get any value that you don't already have in a page builder like Bricks. In fact, Bricks does far more than the block editor does and has far less headaches. So I should just use that. That's the conclusion, okay? Are you still aware of some invading CSS from Bricks, such as the max with 100% from ever? Yeah, we talked about that earlier on the stream. And there's nothing we can do about that, unfortunately. How does Bricks handle CSS? Does it add your custom CSS inline, or does it generate CSS files per page or global? Good question. Bricks, settings, performance, right here, CSS loading method. You get to choose inline or external. Inline is better, it's more performant. I think a bunch of different scenarios have been tested with regard to this. Now, another thing you need to know is if you're using Bricks to write CSS and such, whether you're using custom CSS or the input fields or whatnot, it only is going to write that to the styles for that page that is using those elements, right? So it's not writing a global style sheet that you're loading everything for everything, which is good. That helps on performance side of things. But other than that, there's not a lot to know. I would set this to inline styles and move on with my life, and you're good. How are you celebrating your birthday this year? Just something simple. So for July 4th, I'm not allowed to celebrate on July 4th for the most part. So we always do something a different day with friends. And it's also like, I don't want to make other people leave whatever they're doing for the 4th of July to come, celebrate with me. I just do it on a different day for the most part. Now, I love to go to Florida, and I love to watch fireworks on the beach. But I checked the weather, not going to happen this year, most likely. There's too much rain and such this week. High chance that doesn't happen. So we're staying here celebrating the 4th, and then I'm like, sometimes I'm boring. I'm like, let's just all go bowling or something. And so, but I do like bowling, bowling plus alcohol plus competitiveness. tends to be a lot of fun. So that's pretty much, I try to get people riled up. So, you know, I will shit talk their bowling abilities until they decide that they want to be competitive. And then I got them. Right now we're into a little bit of a game. Okay. You can't just like, why, what is the idea of just go bowling and not really care about, you know, what's going on with the other people's scores and your score? It's no fun. It's no fun. Gotta have a little competition. Gotta get a little, you know, anybody that came to the R3 conference, we were on fire. They took us to a bowling alley thing at the end of the conference. Man, we were on fire. That was fantastic. It was wonderful. So, yeah, that's it. That's what we're gonna do. All right. Trying to create a listing page that shows cards. What's the best way to add pagination and filtering? First, we need to have a debate about the word pagination. It is, in fact, I know a lot of people like pagination, but I don't know about you. I don't navigate pages on my website, right? I do navigate pages. If they're going to spell it like that, I'm going to pronounce it like that. So pagination is what I say. Bricks does this by default. They do pagination by default. I actually don't like pagination all that much. From a user perspective, it depends on the situation, okay? If there's gonna be like 2 pages max, don't do the pagination thing. 3 pages, don't do. I prefer a load more scenario, okay? So you give them some of it, load more, they see more of it, and it's gotta be a manual load more. That automatic load more nonsense, not good. That's not accessible. So manual load more buttons. Now this brings us in, Bricks doesn't give you manual load more by default, at least last time I checked. So I use WP Codebox, I drop in a load more facet, I hook it up to the repeater or the query loop, whatever, and it's pretty much done. Pagination introduces SEO complications, and it's not valuable unless, it's actually not all that valuable altogether. I suppose in certain scenarios where somebody wants to share a link to a list of results that's multiple pages deep, maybe it's helpful there. But the content on those pages is not even guaranteed to stay on those pages, because as more things are published, they might get moved to a different page. Pagination used to be like we don't have another way to do this, right? Like before load more and such, and before faceting, like faceting and load more. So the idea that I'm just gonna go page by page by page through archived content, when I could just search by category, like because I have an interest in a specific category, or use an actual search field to search for specific kinds of content, or see related content or whatever, like facets are way more powerful than pagination. And so I prefer a dynamic grid that reorganizes itself based on the faceting values that people choose and a search input and load more. That's what I prefer. And I think you see this when you're using an e-commerce site. I mean, all e-commerce sites could be heavily paginated, but they're not, are they? They provide the long list of results with load more generally, and then people rely on facets to get to the content that they want to see and filters to see specific attributes of that content. That's the experience we really all want. I don't think anybody's like, I wish this site had 100 pages for me to go through. Nobody ever really says that. Okay, let's see. When will we start properly referring to it as native WP instead of Gutenberg, which it's not? Gutenberg is an experimental beta class. Well, yeah, I mean, that's they've done a shit job with communication in general, so everybody's fucking confused. FSE, this, that, block editor, Gutenberg. I mean, they're just throwing out names to everything. I actually think the entire block editor and FSE should be a plugin. Like that just... I should have to opt in to, if it's gonna be a shit show, I should have to opt into the shit show. Like, don't give me the shit show by default. I wanna have to opt into it. So everybody that manages to somehow like that, they can opt in. And then they are enjoying life, and then we can enjoy life by not opting in, because we don't go that route. Okay, let's see. For Digital Gravy site, which tool did you use for the mockups? Additionally, well, Digital Gravy site is gone. If you go there, digitalgravy.co, because we've shifted. We are now, and I've talked about this progression, but we are exclusively a software company now. Automatic CSS, frames, etch. Okay, that's what we're dedicated to, and that's under the umbrella of Digital Gravy owns all of these assets. So no more actual agency projects that are new anyway. That's the direction we're going. What changes have you made to your Blueprint site over the past year? Not many. Obviously, upgrading automatic CSS to 3.0, putting in some new defaults and stuff like that. I made the change from MetaBox to ACF. Not much. Like the stack is very, 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 very similar. Bricks, ACSS, and frames in WS form does like 98% of all work you would need to do in advanced custom fields. Like I showed the stack the other day of what we were doing with something, and it was just, you don't need much else. I mean, there's some random an image optimization plugin, an SEO plugin, okay. But again, it's still the same fundamental stack. I can't seem to style the table header in frames, and building responsive tables is annoying. Yeah, tables in general are annoying. What is the value in ordering via dynamic data tag as opposed to via tax or meta value in the loop? You could do it that way. It's like, how are you going to use the taxonomy? What are you going to call it? How can you not make it confusing? There's different ways to do it for sure. Can you explain why the Bricks default CSS for blocks adds flex wrap when under 676 pixel breakpoint? I don't understand it. It breaks my cards layouts. Yeah, I'm happy to. It's another annoying Bricks trying to save you. Bricks putting its cape on. Super Bricks coming in, being like, well, okay, here's why. So let's go with a logo. Okay. Can we get enough of them? This is the Bricks 1.9.9 that we know and love. You see what I'm saying? How many images do you count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many? Oh, there they are. You see them on the canvas. I think what's happened is to fix the lag issues or improve the lag issues, they've done something called debouncing, which essentially waits for the user to finish what they're doing before it tries to render what they just did. But then you've got to play with the debounce time, because if you wait too long, it's annoying, right? Well, I was going to say something else about JavaScript frameworks, but because there is a better solution to all of this, that's neither here nor there. It will come up in the future, though. Don't worry. Anyway. So we have all these images, and notice that I did it too fast. So the debouncing, something got lost in the debouncing, and they just didn't appear until I added a new one, and then it all caught up with itself, right? It's kind of annoying. It's not the best way to handle whatever the lag issues they were, in my opinion, but what do I know? So let's go flex. Actually, we got to use the Bricks tools. Okay, so we're going to go flex row. Okay, we need more of these. Okay, you see how it breaks? Like you can go for days. It will just overflow the container, right? Okay, well, most people, when they're building, they don't do that. Okay, they just do enough. Let's just say this. But they don't realize that if they never set the flex container to wrap, that on lower breakpoints, they will actually cause an overflow. And you see it right here, but you don't see it right here. Why is it overflowing here, but not here? Well, most people don't realize. If you watch this little, see, you wouldn't know. Let me zoom in. See this? Okay. This is not even, I didn't even set a value. The value of a flex container by default is to not wrap. Okay. It will just let you overflow shit. And so if you want it to wrap, you need to set it to wrap, and then it will wrap. Okay. Well, I have not set a value, and on desktop, it didn't look like I needed it to wrap. And what Brick says is users will accidentally overflow containers too much. So what we'll do, watch between this breakpoint and this breakpoint, Oh, they snuck it in on you. And it's not even a real value. It's not a value you chose. It's just a value they snuck in on you because they were super bricks. They put their cape on. They're like, we're going to save these users from these overflows. And they just make a decision. Well, guess what? This is yet another decision that is not without consequence. This will actually break other things you're trying to do if you don't realize that it's happening. Okay? And why did they choose this breakpoint and not another? I don't know. They just made an arbitrary choice. And you don't have control over that arbitrary choice. What they should have done is it should be no wrap, and it should always be no wrap. See, now it's no wrap at all times. And you might be like, Kevin, it's breaking the layout. And you're like, yeah, you fucking broke it, didn't you? You need to go set this thing to wrap at the appropriate breakpoint. But it doing it automatically for you is actually not a solution because it can cause other problems. The solution is you understand what you're doing with web design. That's the solution. That like, okay, I need this to wrap because at lower breakpoints, there's not going to be enough room for this content. That's the solution. The solution of it auto trying to make decisions for you at random breakpoints and not even really setting the value. It just kind of is happening behind the scenes. I don't think that's a good solution. So what is the solution? There isn't one. That Bricks chose to do that. There's no way to turn it off. You just have to know it's happening and make your decisions accordingly. Okay, but again, see, yes, is that being critical of Bricks? For sure. Let me make it clear once again. This is an issue that is more or less non-existent in relation to the things that like Elementor and Divi do. I mean, those things are nightmares. The block editor, nightmare. Bricks is clearly not a nightmare. Bricks has some quirks that are annoying, but when you compare, like, what are my other options? Elementor, Divi, Breakdance? No, trust me, they do shit way worse, way more nonsensical. I mean, a laundry list. Don't even get me started. I mean, I could list hundreds of things in these other builders that just make zero sense whatsoever, and make zero sense in any form of like Elementor. The fact that if you put a class on a heading, you try to attach a class to a heading, it doesn't attach the class to the heading. It attaches it 2 levels up to the grandparent. Makes no fucking sense. Never would you ever want that to happen. Elementor does that routinely. It does that as practice. In practice, Elementor is like, if it doesn't make sense, we're gonna do it. We're committed to doing things that don't make sense. So that's what you have to understand when you're using those tools. Bricks, 99% of Bricks makes perfect sense. And then there's a couple quirks here and there. Okay. What are some elements that can be used at root level, like nestable slider can be unwrapped? Are there any other? I don't quite understand what you mean. Used at root level, like nestable slider can be unwrapped. Not sure. Can you give me some more clarification on that question? How to set a different excerpt word count on mobile using CSS. You can definitely limit the character count for sure. But would I? Would I? You really want to change the actual output of the content, but that's hard to do at a specific breakpoint. I need to see the scenario. This is one of those questions where there's more than one approach, and until you visually see what somebody's trying to achieve, it's not possible to give the best solution because it depends on the context of the situation. So if you have a link, but you can't share links in YouTube, this is a question for the inner circle. You come into the inner circle because you can post a link, you can show the example, you can say, here's why I want to do this, and then we can actually show you. That's kind of the best way to do that. Is purely designing plus building websites a worthwhile business? I see so many companies from India charging very cheap prices. How do you compete? Okay, purely designing plus building websites. No, it's not enough. If you're going to be an agency, we design and build your website. That is not enough. And here's why it's not enough. Because you can design and build the most gorgeous, the most perfect, the most highly, like the conversion rates. If there was traffic, the conversion rates would be off the charts, I'm sure, right? You did everything right. You did everything by the book and you hand it over to the client and it does fucking nothing. It does absolutely, because they don't have a plan for making it do anything. They don't have a plan for getting traffic. They don't have a plan for monitoring analytics and running tests and conversion rate optimization or ranking. They don't have a plan for anything. They don't have a plan for anything. And so when you then hand that over to them, they might go hire an SEO agency, and the SEO agency is going to come in and be like, we don't know how this website was built. We don't actually have developers. We're just an SEO agency. And then you're in a situation where they have to relay what needs to be done and And like, no, you should just have, an approach that includes design, development, and success. Okay. Now, however you want to go about the success path is up to you. You can't be an expert in every area, but what you can say is what we are experts in, and then this has to fit the niche you're targeting or the type of person you're working with. Let's say it's small local businesses, okay? What do small local businesses need to be successful? Well, SEO in the old days especially was a really, really critical thing for them, okay? PPC, probably a really, really, really critical thing for them. Email marketing, not so much. I mean, it might be good for them to have email marketing, but it's not gonna it's probably not gonna make or break the website. So what you could say as an agency is, you know what we do? We do design, development, and PPC. So what we've done is we've added this success component so that when we design it and build it, we can also guarantee you're gonna be successful because we're experts at PPC. We're gonna bring in qualified buyers, qualified traffic to your website using PPC and get the conversions that way. We do this for every client we work with, so we know we can do it, right? Or you could say what we do is design and development, and we're experts in SEO. So yeah, you might need another agency to come in and do PPC, but we're gonna have the organic traffic side of things on lockdown for you. We're gonna get you ranking, and that's how we're gonna get you traffic, and that's how we're gonna make your website successful. And maybe you also, because you're SEO, you add content marketing into the mix, so you're doing the SEO blogging kind of thing. Maybe you're doing backlink acquisition. Maybe there's a lot of things you can do. But the idea that it would be design, development, and good luck, that's not a good model. I think that's a terrible model. I like the model of design, development, pathway to success, okay? And again, whatever you want that pathway to success to be is up to you. But there's gotta be a pathway to success to go with the design and development if you wanna compete in this day and age. That's my opinion. Okay, let's see. When I try to add margin on a moon, a figure element, bricks zero out the margins with higher specificity. How do I overcome this? You rewrote it. Hold on. When adding a margin on a figure element, that's good. The moon thing was throwing me off. When adding a margin on a figure element modifier class, bricks zeros out the margins with higher specificity. What's the proper way to overcome this? This doesn't sound like it should be the case. Sounds like you might be doing something wrong. But there is a quirk with bricks figure elements. Okay, fundamental rule of page building, of a page builder. If you're a page builder developer, please listen to me, okay? Fundamental rule, do not generate a box that the user cannot select, okay? So let's see this rule violated by bricks. Now, with the section element, bricks gives you a container that's a box, and you can select it. A lot of page builders don't do that. Gutenberg doesn't do that. The block editor, doesn't do that. So they're already a step ahead. But they violate the rule right here with images, okay? And we have to understand what the code output is doing in order to understand this. So we're gonna go to the front end, we're gonna inspect, and we're gonna see that I have an image. Fantastic. I did put an image on the page, so I'm getting what I asked for. Image, fantastic, great. Okay, now let's go back into the builder. I'm asking for that to be wrapped in a figure tag, okay? Go back, front end, did it happen? What happened? Okay, figure around the image, yeah? But in doing that, bricks just made some new decisions for me. And I wanna override those decisions. And in order to do that, I need access to the figure tag, okay? So the question is, can I select there is no fucking figure tag. There's still just the image there. It created a box. The box has implications, but I can't touch the box, right? You know how much I like to touch the box. So this is it's a big problem for me. It's a big problem for me. And Elementor creates hundreds of little boxes that you're not allowed to touch, which is really annoying. Bricks creates this one in this instance, and it's a box we can't touch. Guess what? I can't put a class on the image separately from the figure, or vice versa, because I can't touch the box that was generated. Man, it's a big problem, isn't it? The big problem. So let's just test out what you were doing. So you said, when adding a margin on a figure element modifier class, I need to know what class you're adding for. Okay, let's add margin. Well, we can't even do it there. Are you using a custom class like my image? Okay, and then you add some margin here. So let's go. I'm trying to think of what you're trying to do. Margin top of like 100 pixels. Okay, maybe this is what you're describing because nothing's fucking happening. Let's reload the canvas. This may be what you're talking about right here. Let's inspect. Figure class has my image. You're right. Why did they do this? See, this is a big problem. Bricks, Thomas. What is another fundamental rule? Okay, let's just go. It's not like this stuff isn't publicly available. Let's go to the automatic CSS blog, and let's click on minimum page builder requirements for ACSS, and let's just scroll down. And this is kind of written to page builder developers, okay? And it says, well, you kind of have to have clean code output. By the way, there's Elementor's code output versus Brix's code output for a H2 heading. Okay, yeah, you see, not great. We come down, requirement 2. Low specificity or no specificity defaults. And then I give examples and I show why is this, and I even give the solutions. How do you remove specificity? How do you avoid specificity issues? And then we see right here, somebody brings up a very valid example of where, look at this. I'm gonna hover over this. Look at that, specificity 001. Where's the other rule that they were adding? It's on the figure right here. 010. They've attached a class to an element, okay, creating much higher specificity than what is needed. And they've just decided you're not allowed to have margin on these things. They've set the margin to 0. Why did they do that? Probably to override some other rule that they had, some other opinion that they had put in. But they're doing this with like heavy specificity to the point where if I put my own class on the element, it ends up at 010. The only way I can put margin on my image with a class is to just manufacture more specificity, which I can't even do with the builder interface because they don't allow class chaining. I can't do something like my image. This would win, but that's not a valid selector in Bricks. So I have to come down here and do a root. That's probably how I have to do it, root. And then if we just say margin top 100 pixels, now it wins. That's a worker, that's a hack. Why, see, this is why I say page builders should do things a certain way. And people are like, that's just your opinions, Kep. No, it's not. It's not just my opinion. It's because we run into scenarios like this all the time. So there should be some fundamental rules that page builders follow. There's no need for all this specificity that they add in their opinions. And you can be opinionated, just be opinionated with no specificity so that it's easy for me to override your opinion. Automatic CSS, every auto opinion that it applies with no specificity. So if you need to override it, it's very easy to override. It also applies the opinion with a token. So not only can you override the selector easily, you could just hijack the token. There's 2 different ways you can easily overcome it. So yeah, it's just rules that keep getting violated. If I need to exclude an entire CPT from a sticky header, can I do that in ACSS or just individual pages? In automatic CSS for sure. So you can go to layout, header, okay, offset content automatically, exclude pages. It says exclude pages because I don't want to make a long label, but this is any body class. Any body class, you can just exclude that. So template, custom post type, because if you look at a post type, let's just go back here in the back end. We get into the dashboard. Okay, services, all services, plumbing, view. Okay, here we go. Inspect. All right, we go to body right here, and we look for single service. Okay, right here. So these are added by WordPress. Like WordPress adds body classes to things to help identify what they are, right? So this is in the service custom post type. It's a single service page. Sometimes it'll say like post type service, something like that. So you can just take those selectors and drop them in to automatic CSS's exclusion area right here, right there. So you would just comma, quote, put the next one in. So that was single service like that. And it'll exclude that. And so it won't do the offset on any of those pages, anything with that body class. Or you can manually, I did a whole video on how to do this. So just go watch the video. That way we don't have to spend extra time on this. Okay, show workflow for checking possible error. Okay, how to work on the contact section Foxtrot, kind of confusing. How to work on content section Foxtrot. Okay, let's get rid of all these, all this. Contact, this isn't really a frames Q&A. Which one of these is Foxtrot? Oh, yeah. There's a whole video tutorial on this. This is a very advanced frame for dynamically placing map markers, generating a slider with a query loop, and you're gonna need your location CPT, and you're gonna need to activate this code block, and there's a whole tutorial on it though. If you're an Inner Circle member, I actually built this from scratch in the Inner Circle. You can just watch the entire thing get built, then you'll know exactly how it works. But I believe there's also a video just for Frames users on how to set it up. Okay, there's also documentation on it, I believe, on the Frames website. But that's gonna be beyond, this is gonna take us 30 minutes to get something working for that. It's a very advanced frame for a very advanced use case. Now, if you need that use case, that frame will save you probably 10 hours of time. But if you don't need it, then you don't need to worry about it. And we don't need to worry about it in this Q&A. Okay, are you a good bowler? Do you have pro gloves, shoes, etc.? No, Derek, that's the fun thing, is I could be decent at bowling on any given day. I could be horrible at bowling on any given day. I think my highest score, 180, something like that. That's what makes it even more fun, because I will continue to talk shit even if I'm bad at it, just to make it more fun. And then I don't mind losing, but I don't want to lose. And so this is what makes it fun, Derek. This is what makes it fun. Okay. And I prefer, it's great if, when the pro bowler shows up with like their glove and their ball and all this shit. Of course, I'd love to beat them. It's not quite as fun. I my other friends aren't fantastic at bowling either. So this is how you have a good time. Everybody roughly sucks at it. Okay. What is your opinion? What is your option of Beaver Builder managing a website that was already built using it? Oh, okay. So great. Elementor, Divi, Beaver. They're all exactly the same. They all are equally bad. They're equally bad in terms of code output. They're equally bad in terms of accessibility. They're equally bad in terms of workflow, maintainability, scalability. The list goes on and on and on and on. These tools are known and loved by people who learned on those tools, okay? They're not known and loved by people who are, understand the fundamentals of web design. Because there's not a lot to love there, honestly. And I inspect the code. Like I've shown the examples. You just saw the code block I put of Elementor versus bricks, right? Like there's very good reasons for these opinions. It's not just like, I don't like the Beaver. Like, I think it's a dumb name for page builder, right? I don't like it. But that's not the reason I don't like the builder, right? Some people will come to that conclusion on their own. Like they're like, I just don't like the branding. I don't like the people. I don't like the, okay. I don't like the technical output of the tools. And that's what I'm talking about exclusively, is that the technical output and the technical workflow is bad. Objectively bad. There is no like counter opinion. Like bad code is bad code. Non-maintainable, non-scalable workflow is a non-maintainable and non-scalable workflow. There's no other way to slice it. It's objectively bad. Now, people prefer it because that's what they learned on and they don't know any different, and they also don't know any better. Okay, so let's just be clear about this. 9 out of 10 Elementor users have no idea what Elementor is doing behind the scenes. They have no idea the code that's being output. They have no idea that when you attach a class to something, it doesn't actually attach it to the thing. The technical stuff is unknown to them. So they can't even, they're not informed enough to be critical of the technical side of the builder. They're gauging things like, does it make it easy for me to drag this thing on and put it over here? Like, they're very basic stuff. That's what they're grading and judging. They don't know that like calling columns is actually a problem. Like that. Let me rephrase that. Calling a flex layout columns, actually Bricks does this. It's annoying as shit. I think I have excluded it from this. I uninstall their things that don't make sense. Layout, it used to be in layout right here. Yeah, you can't see the name of it. I think they have a columns element. Correct me if I'm wrong. But like Gutenberg does this too. Let's go in here. Let's go out here, because I think people need to understand this stuff. Like, understand why this doesn't make sense fundamentally from like a web design perspective. There it is, right here. To call an element columns, okay? This is ridiculous from actual fundamentals of web design standpoint. These are not columns. This is visually, they're columns, okay? But in CSS, in web design, these are not columns, okay? So we could prove this, right? We're in the wrong build. Here we go. So let's go back to our rich text element, right? Rich text. Nope, I don't want to drag that out of there. Let's go get our website Ipsum. I'm going to show you what columns are. I'm going to show you exactly what columns are. Don't worry. Don't worry. All right, let's put this in. Okay, call, column count 2, okay? Those are columns. This is actually, if you go to columns in the docs, these are columns. Columns have CSS properties called columns, okay? So the idea that we're gonna create an element called the same thing as another element, but it's not gonna do the thing the fundamental thing does. That's the workflow we're gonna rock with. This is, to somebody that knows what, this is maddening. It's maddening. No, stop doing that. That's not what that is. To call things a block even, just say that's a block. No, it's not. There's a thing in web design called a block level element that you assume certain things about. And so to call something that uses flex a block, doesn't even behave like a block. That's hard. It requires somebody who already knows what they're doing to unlearn. But still you're using underlying things that, like, it could still be a block if I needed it to be a block, but it's see, it's fucking confusing. It's really confusing. And they do this all the time. And why do they do this? Okay. The fundamental premise, and this is what I have argued against since the beginning. The fundamental premise of these tools is that all of you beginners that came here to watch this and ask your question, I want you to know that these tools that you're using, most of them, Elementor, Divi, the block editor, they think you're a moron. And I've disagreed with that since the very beginning. I don't think you're a moron. I think that you are perfectly capable of just learning fairly simple concepts, okay? And if we just teach the concepts, you will learn them, and then you will be on the same page as everybody else. There's already a standard. A standard is like, here is the documentation for web design. okay? And so if we all learn web design, it would be like you go to become a dentist, right? And so you go to dental school and you learn all the ways of dentistry and you learn what all the tools are called. And you're like, fuck, I'm a dentist. Let's go work on some fucking teeth. And then you go and you go get hired by this dental agency. And this dental agency is like, just to let you know, by the way, I mean, most dentists are morons. So, we've given everything a cute little name. And everything that you've learned in dentist school is not really how we do things here. We've just made everything easier for you. So forget all the stuff you've learned and just learn our way of doing it. See the problem that we're running into? And so we're in a block editor where everything is called the wrong things and the controls are all wrong. And why would an advanced user like this? Well, they wouldn't, but they didn't ask us, right? They didn't ask us. Elementor is the same way. Elementor, Divi, they all feel like we can't just, people can't learn, we just need to make it so that they can use it. But here's the fundamental error of this philosophy, okay? Fact number one is users aren't morons. Fact number two is users who want to stay morons, like if you say, I don't want to learn, I just want to build websites. You can't really, without years of a learning curve. And I've said this all the time, like it doesn't matter how much you dumb the tool down. Make it as dumb as you can make it, like the block editor, and then sit my mom in front of it. She still can't do it. So you are pursuing a path that has no real conclusion, right? Other than you're pissing off everybody who actually wants to use a legitimate tool. That's all you're doing. So Elementor, Divi, like these are impossible to learn. They're impossible to use if you actually know what you're doing. And if you're a beginner trying to learn it, when you get to the end of a 2-year pathway in Elementor, all you know is Elementor. You don't actually know web design. So you're not actually more equipped to do your job in any other capacity. And any advanced user trying to use Elementor is just frustrated. It's just it's all bad philosophy. It's based on bad thinking. How do you use hook turn to address ACF DB bloat issue? That doesn't sound like a beginner question. Viewable, okay. How do you determine what to put on the homepage? Whew. That's a tough one. That depends on what is the business, what is the product, what is the offer, who's the visitor, It's different. It's different for every website. We do talk a lot about this in the inner circle though. Like a lot of the discovery trainings are exactly answering that question. So I would go do those because it's really not answerable. It's a case by case basis. How did you change the widgets layout and the bricks UI on the left? That's automatic CSS doing that. So we just put in that feature recently because this is way more streamlined and easy. The side by side, it's just not a good situation. So if you go to options, bricks enhancements, stack the add elements panel. Just flip that on and you're good to go. Have you switched over completely to InstaWP? Just for my tutorials and my testing and all that kind of stuff, yes. Do you have a tutorial on building a custom query loop for LearnDash with bricks? I don't use LearnDash, so I do not. But it shouldn't be that fundamentally different from anything else involving a query loop, I would think. How do you do speed optimization for your brick sites? Do you use Lightspeed or WP Rocket or Flying Press? None of the above. So we do caching at the server level. We do Redis object caching at the server level. We do Cloudflare. So Cloudflare, I believe it's called APO. It's a specific WordPress optimizer on the Cloudflare platform. Typically, that's the typical route that we go. Let's see. And then we defer JavaScript. I use perf matters to get rid of all the junk in WordPress and to delay and defer specific JavaScript that's running. That is the one plugin that we use as part of that optimization process. Can I send you a little complicated hero section on Figma to develop in bricks? Sure, I can do it as a tutorial. Does your entry-level website product include the pathway to success, fundamental on-page SEO, PPC, entry-level web product? I'm not sure. Like when we were an agency, our process was discovery, design, dev, SEO, and PPC. So we were hitting both SEO and PPC. And rare cases, I would also, so we'd be doing a lot of analytics stuff. We would do conversion optimization. And then for certain types of clients that it made sense for, I would talk them into doing a bunch of email marketing stuff. And so I would set up email funnels for them, write the email copy, things like that. And because email marketing actually has the largest ROI of any of any marketing thing that you can do online. If you're good at email marketing, the ROI in email marketing is absolutely insane. And it's an untapped opportunity for a lot of different businesses if they have a certain kind of business. And so I would sell them on implementing a whole host of email marketing stuff and automation for them. And it works out really, really, really well. But again, they got to be on board with it. They got to be willing to invest in it and give it a shot. And it has to be the right type of business. But those would be the three, because those are the three things I use other than content. People always ask me about social media. We should probably hit on this because they're like, well, what if I want my thing to be social media? No. If you're a web design and development agency, you are not also a social media agency, okay? We have to be very, very clear on this. This is coming from somebody who I think does fairly well on social media, given the tiny niche that I operate in. You can't. Any web design agency selling social media services is selling bottom of the barrel, surface level nonsense that's really not going to do much of anything. To do social media right, you have to go all in on social. Like you have to be dedicated. There's got to be a personality behind it. There's got to be usually either film or design, something behind it that is very skilled in that regard. And think about even organic stuff. Like it's all personality driven. So, and your agency can't be the personality. And unless you're working for very high end clients, it's not like you're going to be hiring personality or something like that. So just take an average small business. Take my jujitsu gym as an example, because I've consulted with them on social media stuff. And I've kind of told them this is you guys have to I know people at the gym there's some people with a good personality, right? But you have to put them in a position where they are dedicating hours and hours to social media. Okay, they've got to be doing a whole bunch of stuff on TikTok, on Facebook, on Instagram, different based on the platform, dedicated to it, right? If you look at social media influencers who are racking up tens of thousands of subscribers and views, and social media is their full-time job. The idea that you are just gonna we have this add-on social media package. What? You have an add-on social media package? Oh, what, you're gonna put out a few posts a week of memes and graphics and sales and shit? That's not social media. That's not social media. So yeah, if you're gonna do a social media agency, you got to go all in on being a social media agency, and you got to hire a lot of fucking people because it's a lot of work. And if you don't have the clients to pay for it, you're going to have to coach the clients on how to do it. And then there's the question of, are they actually going to execute to the level they need to execute at? Social media is a beast in itself. There is no add-on social media service. There's no, we designed the website and build the website and then we just do social media. No, that's maybe there's an edge case where somebody employing some super secret shit I don't know about. But from what I know of social media, you have to be dedicated to social media. And you have to have personality and narrative and skill and a lot of time. Okay. Does your mom know she is famous here on your channel? She has no idea. As much skill as she has in building websites, that's as much knowledge as she has of her notoriety and fame on WDD Live. And I want to keep it that way because the one day I do put her in front of a screen with a camera on, it's just going to be magic. It's going to be you're all going to know her, and it's going to be absolute magic. And we're going to let her use, I don't know, an Elementor or a Divi or something. That would be super fun. Mom, here's the thing you need to build. Have at it. Now, the reason we haven't done this yet is I haven't come up with the format. Because we're all not gonna sit here for 4 hours to see if she can get a heading on the page, okay? Like nobody has that level of attention. So how do we manage it? Like we gotta put her in the seat, we gotta turn on a camera. Should it be a time lapse? Is that what we should do? Like time lapse it? I thought of doing like a Mr. Beast thing. Like if she does it in this amount of time, like the first section in this, like 5 people win $1,000 or something. And then we'll put the timer on the screen. We'll play the music. I'll stand there and I'll give a play-by-play. What should the format be? We got to do something with it, right? We got to do something with it. Let me know. Whatever ideas you have, let me know. People are saying the root font size, 62.5% for easier rim calculations, affects accessibility since it doesn't respect user font sizes. What is your stance? Those people are dead wrong. They have no idea what they're talking about. Now, if you do the root font size, let's pull up automatic CSS. It's very easy. It's actually a very easy question to answer. So this website has 100% as the root font size. 62.5. Now, if I update, should be able to, let's refresh. See how everything goes back to the way it was? So it doesn't actually break, because automatic CSS just recalculated the entire framework and was like, oh, we have a new root font size. Okay. And so now everything looks the way it's supposed to look. That's what's good about automatic CSS. You can flip back and forth. Now, if you did this, well, ACSS doesn't even let you do it because the percent is hard coded, okay? So here's what you would have to do. So you would have to, let's go body, page settings, custom code, custom CSS. Okay, so you do something like this, right? This breaks accessibility. So you're changing, and it doesn't really matter if it's body or root, okay? You are breaking accessibility because you used a fixed pixel value. That would absolutely be wrong, right? 62.5% equates to 10 pixels because of the browser's native root font size of 16 pixels, okay? But it does not break accessibility. If you did this, which is a shortcut, that does break accessibility. But 62.5%, anybody that says that breaks accessibility has no idea what they're talking about. Okay, that was an easy one. We're almost done and we're out of time, so I'm gonna do like 2 more. Do you use AI for general work purpose, web design, your plugins, text generation? Any preference between ChatGPT, Claude, or, okay, I've only used ChatGPT. I use it very minimally. I never use it for content. I hate it when people use it for content. I have used the image generation AI. What's the name? Midjourney. I've used that. I think it's fun. I think in some cases it's helpful. I'll have to do a whole video on how I think AI should be used. I do think it's actually a really good learning tool. Let's say you were gonna learn CSS, okay? Pull up ChatGPT or something and tell ChatGPT, say, I am learning CSS. I'm going to be asking you some questions. I don't want you to give me the answers to the questions. I want you to give me hints, okay? And so you're setting up your relationship with this AI a very specific way that is gonna facilitate you learning without just doing everything for you, okay? And so you start to ask it questions about CSS and it'll say things like, you're on the right track, but maybe think about this or whatever. And it'll give you little hints and it'll actually say, do you want me to give you the answer? You can opt in to getting the answer at any time, whatever. But I would try to limit yourself to how much you allow it to help you. And the hints can be very helpful because they get you unstuck, but without just feeding you a bunch of copy paste code, right? That's how I use AI in a lot of, like when I'm learning JavaScript, that's literally what I wrote and told it. I was like, I'm gonna ask you questions about my JavaScript. I'm gonna ask you questions about JavaScript in general. I do not want you to give me code blocks. I want you to give me hints as to what I should think about next or what I'm doing wrong. And then it helps coach me and it helps teach me. That's how I think AI can be used really, really, really well. If there's anything that involves repetition, like I had I wrote a redirect line, and I was like, I need to apply this to like all these URLs. And I didn't really know how to do it in a spreadsheet. I'm sure you can use some spreadsheet ninja shit to do it, but I'm not a spreadsheet expert, okay? So I just copied them all, and I was like, here's the format I want all these lines to be in. Rewrite all these lines for me. And it rewrote all the lines. Okay, that's a legit use of AI, where we're just like, I don't want to do all this repetitive bullshit. Just do this for me. Like, I already know what I'm doing. I did it to one line, but I need you to do it 1,000 more times, and it does it 1,000 more times. Those are really good use cases for AI. Did your agency specialize in one flavor of PPC only, or keep it broad? It was only PPC for small local businesses, for service-based businesses, okay? So that was like now it wasn't a specific industry like plumbing or electricians or anything like that. If you were a service business, we worked with you. And that was actually the kind of the fun of it, because we had to figure out how to make the funnels work. Based on what we knew about the SEO and the company and the offer and all this other stuff. So that's where the creative aspect of it comes in. I actually don't like niching down that specifically, because you turn yourself into a factory where it's like you're just churning out the same shit every single day, and it doesn't tickle any of your creativity. But yeah, we weren't like, oh, e-commerce, come on in, we'll do your PPC. No, that's not what we were doing. All service-based businesses, and all local businesses, or regional. They could be regional businesses too. But it was kind of focused in that regard. Okay, one last question. Actually, let me go to the chat real quick, see what people are up to. I do dislike the fact that I can't see the chat while I'm in the questions list. So I'm a little disconnected from the chat. Okay. CSS appears to have been correctly configuring real column attributes. Okay. I wish I could put I can't even put the chat on the screen either. I really need to look at some, how can we expand this out to make the experience a little bit better? I've been a Divi designer in Divi Builder for 6 years, and I'm a semi-expert. I'm now moving to Bricks, ACSS frames, and finally learning CSS. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's from Marl. I think that's how you pronounce your name. That's absolutely fantastic. That's good. And it's not that these tools like Divi and Elementor can't give you like some confidence to like, oh, I can do things. Simple concepts. Like, there are things you're going to learn, but you're just missing so much of the fundamentals. So, but if it gives you the confidence to commit to learning the fundamentals, then that's a good segue. Man, there was a lot of questions I'm now seeing that were not hashtagged. So they were being skipped. Okay, what quirk irritates you the most? That's tough. That's tough. I mean, the max width thing, because it actually breaks a feature in automatics. Everything in automatics, we've been able to find a workaround for. And that is one feature we cannot find a workaround for. Do you mostly use 1366 as a base breakpoint? I use that as my content width for the most part, yes. You got to use your imagination. Let's see. Okay. All right. I guess we're ready to wrap this thing up. I didn't see any other questions that stood out. Use your iPhone to look at live chat. I guess I could do that. I could bring up the YouTube app, but then I got to remember to do, it's very manual. Okay. Okay, we already answered that question. I'm trying to find one last question. Get out of here on. Okay. Viewable. Oh yeah, the homepage is viewable. Okay, that's fine. Whatever. Yeah, I'm about to essentially delete all of those pages. I know you could probably get there if you search for them or whatever. If I need to disclose CPT, okay, just found Tony's post on please check your caches and other things that break your site. Not sure if this is the right place, but wondering if you could show workflow for checking for possible error. We'll end on this. Yes, let's make sure everybody understands this. Obviously, websites are very complicated. Obviously, we have a builder environment that's very complicated. Then when you add additional builder environments in, that complicates things even further. Then you have a panel like ACSS, which lives inside of the builder environment or lives on the front end of the website. And then people have all of this optimization stuff running. So this is JavaScript, right? Automatic CSS is built in Svelte. And so it is JavaScript. And a bunch of people, like there's other scripts running. The builder runs scripts, plugins run scripts, and all of this stuff, Automatic CSS doesn't contribute to front-end performance because it doesn't load on the front end for logged out users. So there's no implications there, but other scripts do run on the front end. WooCommerce scripts run on the front end. Any other plugins that you have. And so people are like, well, those things are causing performance problems. And so they implement caching, they implement deferring and delaying JavaScript. And a lot of these people, it's like the page builder situation, they don't know technically what is actually happening with the deferring and the delaying and the caching. And then they've got caching plugins, but they've also got server caching, but they've also got Cloudflare. But I mean, this is chaos, right? And so what inevitably happens, what a fucking complicated word that is they install these things like plugin, server, and then they open Automatic CSS and they're like, it's broken, it's not working. Like, granted, it's not bug-free because no software is bug-free, but there are just an endless stream of, I did all this shit on my website with plugins and caching and delaying and deferring, and why is my dashboard broken? And it's like, well, because of all those things, right? Now you can put exclusions in so that Automatic CSS still works and is not affected, but we have to walk them through that, right? But the worst by far is I changed something in Automatic CSS, which we know works. Like thousands of people are doing it every single day. I'm doing it on live streams. I'm doing it here and there every single day. And it's clearly working. And the person is putting in a thread like, why isn't this working? And this stuff never works. And they're, it's not just it's okay if it's like hey, why isn't this working? It's still kind of annoying when it's a simple thing that it's like, dog, you've got 18 caching layers. Like, and they're like, I cleared my cache. I'm like, you did one of them. But the other 17 caching layers that you've got on are still caching the thing. And so, we just have to explain ourselves like 1,000 times a day for the same situations. That gets a little bit frustrating. So then Tony will create a thread like, guys, you can't have 18 caching layers and ask us why you can't see your changes on the front end. And the notorious thing will always be like, it looks good in the builder, but it doesn't look, okay, it looks good in the builder because the builder's not cached, right? So that's a clear red flag indicator that it's probably a caching issue. But what we're trying to get, people to learn is managing the caching. But how do you teach them how to manage the caching? You can't put a video on how to because everybody uses different caching layers and types and all this other stuff. If you use grid pane, you've got 2 different caching layers that you can add at the server level. Then God forbid somebody throws 3 caching plugins on top of that. And then you've got people with open Lightspeed who you go in the Lightspeed panel, there's 400 switches, right? And who knows what configuration they've gone with, right? Every different configuration that's imaginable in there could have different implications. It's the responsibility of the website owner to understand the options that they're adding and the caching layers that they're applying. Hopefully so they can manage these things on their own, right? And deferring and delaying JavaScript, we gotta know what our tools are doing so that when it creates a problem, we can go manage the problem ourselves and not inundate plugin developers with, why are my 17 caching layers and 18 levels of JavaScript deferral and delaying breaking it's obvious why it's breaking. It's all the stuff you've done, okay? And so you have to unravel that. There might be plugin conflicts, right? Because think about one person saying, why did this break on my site? Okay, send us a login. Now we gotta log in. Fuck, you got 2-factor authentication. Okay, so I'm gonna spend my time messaging you back going, I can't get in because it's 2-factor authentication. Or the password you gave me doesn't work. Or these are just hours of time get eaten up on this kind of stuff. Then we manage to get in and it's like, what is going on? Like with this wild west of a WordPress install, we got to go diagnose every plugin. I mean, we could spend an hour on this one person's install. And then the end conclusion is they didn't even save the setting or something. Like it's something so simple, but we just went through this diagnosis process that took an hour long. And now we got to do it for the next person and the next person and the next person. And we do try to keep up with it as much. Like we try to go above and beyond and do as much as we possibly can. But some things just come down to the user needing to understand what the hell they're doing with their server configuration and their plugin configuration and their caching level. If you're going to install all this on your website, then it is important that you understand what it's all doing and how to manage it. A whole tutorial video on caching, cookies, servers, hosting, plugins, and basic terms and differences between all these essentials would be so helpful. Yeah, I almost think we need to do like a round table with some experts on like performance and by the way, they're gonna all debate with each other on like how you should go, approach all of this stuff. It's a discipline in itself. It's people ask me, how do I learn copywriting? Well, you can't learn copywriting. You can study copywriting. That's what you can do. You can't learn it. You can study it. It's an area of study. And the more you study it, the better you will get at it. And the more you practice, the better you will get at it. But there is no like, here's this copywriting course, go take it and you're a copywriter. Congratulations. That's not how it works, right? Even CSS. CSS is, yeah, you could do a course and get comfortable, but it's an area of study because it's always evolving as well, right? Caching is always evolving. JavaScript deferral, perf matters. These things are always evolving, so they always change. And so it's important for people to be involved in the discipline of it. And yeah, that could start with a round table, that could start with a video, that could start with a whatever. But people do need to kind of, like you're in this field. This is the field you're working in. Now, the other thing you can do, which is what I've done, you hire and you say, you know what? I'm not managing all this shit. I'm not managing grid pane. I'm not managing DNS. I'm not managing caching. I'm not managing performance. I hire somebody and go, that's your job. Welcome to the team. Hey, all right, here you are. And then if there's a problem, I go, hey, Doc, there's a problem. You fix it, right? I don't need to worry about it. So you don't need to worry about this. That's the same thing with copywriting, right? The idea that you're gonna design and dev and then write the copy and then do the SEO and then do the PPC and keep up with all this stuff and then do the caching and then do the security and then do the, whoa, what are we doing? That's not possible. One person can't do all these things. This is why I feel that the idea of starting a solo business doing this, if you're gonna be a freelancer, we'll close out on this. Is that the third time I've said we'll close out on this? We'll close out on this. If you're going to be a freelancer, freelance. Don't be a freelance, I do it all, okay? Let people hire you for a specific thing that you're an expert in, right? You could be a freelance copywriter. You could be a freelance security expert. You could be a freelance developer, the page builder. Or you could be a freelance JavaScript guy, or you could be a freelance PPC person, or what. Those things you can freelance. Don't be if you're gonna be hey, I wanna get clients and I wanna give them the whole package. I wanna manage their website, I wanna do everything for them, help them with the marketing. You need people now, dog. Like you can't, that's not a one person job, okay? So you just elected to be an agency. Congratulations. You now must assemble talent, okay? Otherwise, this is gonna be a shit show. And by the way, it's gonna be way too risky for the client. I mean, the idea that all this stuff, even if you were really, really, really good at everything, that it flows through one person, that's the bottleneck, that's the security risk, that's not even a good situation to put your people in, your clients, okay? So if you're gonna freelance, pick a lane and go down the lane. If you're gonna be I love this whole industry, I love everything about it, and I wanna do a lot of different stuff, okay? Good. You just opted into being an agency. Now assemble some talent, and the weaknesses, anything that is a weakness on your part, like when you're page building and you don't know why the cache hasn't cleared on the front end, you don't know why the deferred JavaScript is breaking something, that's a sign that you need to hire somebody that actually does know that side of things, okay? Bring them in to help you And now you can just hand it off and it's all fixed and it's all resolved, right? We have an epidemic of people trying to do too much. We have an epidemic of people trying to do things they're not really qualified to do. That's what page builders like Element or Divi actually allow that in mass. We have an epidemic of people not wanting to learn the craft, right? And so craftsmanship, I think, is a big, important part of professionalism. And that's why I've dedicated so much education to craftsmanship. And workmanship and quality and crossing T's and dotting I's and accessibility and knowing what you're doing and yada, yada, yada. I was just having a conversation with Dave Foy this morning, actually. And I talked about this concept of people being like a, what's it called? Imposter syndrome. You have imposter syndrome, right? There's two types of imposter syndrome. Let's close out on this. Now, see, I'm just trolling you. There's two types of imposter syndrome. A, this is the legit imposter syndrome, okay? And I've talked about my designer friend a lot. Fucking talent up the wazoo. Clearly knows what he's doing. Would blow just get 30 random designers and put them all in XD or Figma, the guy will blow their sock, like technically speaking in design and actually technically speaking in the tool. Put him in Illustrator, he will drown them. He will take them into deep water and drown them. He knows every part of it, and he's an amazing artist, okay? People like that have imposter syndrome, and it doesn't seem to make sense, but you see it in what they charge people. They undercharge dramatically. They're insanely talented and they undercharge dramatically. Like $20,000 for a logo is what he could be charging, and he might charge $1,500, okay? Dramatic undercharging, and that speaks to what? Imposter syndrome, okay? The idea that I'm so insanely good, but I don't know it, and I don't believe it. And that is the real imposter syndrome. How do you get out of that? Therapy, or like somebody shakes you and they smack some sense into you, and then they coach you on like, no. You're gonna go in and you're gonna charge them $10,000 for this one, okay? $10,000. Just do what I say. I know you're sweating bullets. I see that. You're gonna charge them $10,000. That's the number you're gonna say, and then they're gonna pay it. Okay, because of your portfolio. And then they go in and they say, 10,000. And the guy's like, yep, 10,000, here you go. And they're like, oh, light bulb goes off. And you're like, yeah, exactly. Now you're never gonna do 1,500 again. Now, the next one you go in, you're gonna say 15,000. They're like, I see you're sweating bullets again. You're gonna say 15,000. And then you coach them and you force them to do it, and it breaks them out of this ridiculous reality in their head of, I'm not actually that good. And it's like, no, you are that good, and you're gonna charge for it. And now I've saved you. I've rescued you from this imposter syndrome. Great. Imposter syndrome B. You know what imposter, now a lot of people are not gonna wanna hear this, but you probably need to hear this. You will have imposter syndrome because you are an imposter. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. You've spent 3 years in Elementor, and you can assemble in Elementor, but in the back of your mind, you kind of know, I don't know what the fuck Elementor's doing on the back end back there. I don't know what this code means. I don't know much of anything. And so you undercharge, for sure, and you stay low level, and you kind of have this sense that like, I'm an imposter, and it's because you are, right? And so how do you escape that version of imposter syndrome? Well, you learn, you commit to learning. That's it. You commit to being better. And so that was what Page Building 101, and actually the philosophy, and this was in the conversation with Dave Foy, which was a very productive conversation. And we should have more of these open conversations and record them and do live streams. This would be great. But what I told him is, let's go back to the fundamental flaw of page builders. What was their assumption of the people that will be using them? The assumption is either A, they're too dumb to learn, or B, they have no interest in learning. So if those are your two assumptions of your user base, you have to create a dumb tool, okay? And that's exactly what they did. Those are dumb tools for a dumb user base. And I'm not insulting the user base. They insulted the user base by making the tool the way that they made it, okay? And I said, that's a false assumption. My assumption is people who are coming into web design, one, it's a highly technical field. The idea that you're gonna come into a highly technical field and be able to do so much without knowing anything is laughable. It's insane. That if that is your premise, then you've already failed. That premise is fundamentally flawed. It's like if I was gonna go into brain surgery and I show up on day one in the brain surgery office and I'm like, make it easy for me. It's like, it's not really that easy. Or I go work on rockets at NASA. And they're like, it's not quite that easy. There's gonna be some prerequisites. There's gonna be some things you have to learn, right? That's web design. I'm not saying it's brain surgery, but there's a lot of shit to learn. There's a lot of prerequisites. There's a lot of education involved. There's a lot of shit to keep up with. The idea, again, that my mom is going to open Wix or Squarespace, and we see the commercials. The commercials are lying to you. They're lying to everybody, but we can see their fundamental premise in the commercial. You're an idiot, come on in. You don't wanna learn this stuff, come on in. You can still build websites. And not only is that wrong, it's not even true. Put my mom in front of Wix or Squarespace or WordPress or whatever. She can't use it. Nobody can. Nobody off the street. Grab any random person off the street and put them in front of these tools and say, here's what you need to build. How long will they be there? How long is it gonna take? It's not gonna be that day. I'll tell you that right now. It's gonna be a long time, okay? They're probably gonna get frustrated and give up, honestly. Actually, that's what most business owners do. How much of our business comes from watched a Wix commercial, tried to build it, got fucking frustrated, hired somebody who knows how to do it? That is like a number one pathway to agency business, okay? Wix lies, they figured out Wix lied, now they go hire somebody they should have hired in the first place. Because the fundamental reality is that you can't just execute in a highly technical field with no knowledge, with no technical knowledge or understanding of what's going on. So they created a product for an outcome that's not even achievable. And so what I said, counter to the current philosophy, is no. Anybody who wants to build multiple websites. Now, let's be clear. If you want to build a bunko website, like if my mom was like, I need a bunko website, like ASAP. Our bunko club is on fire, son, and we need a website for the bunko club. I'd be like, Mom, go to Wix and choose one of the pre-made whole websites and just edit some content, okay? That's your life, just go do that, right? You don't need to hire anybody, just go do that. Did she design a website? No. She chose a pre-built, pre-made thing and changed some content. And that's the extent of what she does, and she hits publish. And if that's what you're gonna use the tool for, that's a great use of that tool, okay? You're not a web designer. You're not gonna be a web designer. You didn't design that website. You didn't build that website. Don't fool yourself. You didn't do a damn thing, okay? And be okay with that, fine. But if somebody says, I am going to work in web design, I am going to be in web design, I am interested in web design, whether it's a hobby, whether it's a freelance, whether it's an agency, whether it's an interest, it doesn't matter. If they just say, if they have any interest whatsoever, my premise was they're not dumb and they actually want to learn. So what we do is we teach them and we give them a capable tool. So you pair education with a capable tool and voila, they learn what they need to learn and they do what they need to do. It's not that hard. And by the way, this is proven by Webflow. Webflow proved this. Webflow said, we see all you guys dumbing down your tools, appealing to the lowest common denominator, running ad after ad after ad of straight fucking lies about what people are gonna be capable of with your tool. We see all that. We're gonna develop a tool with actual power that actually speaks the language of web design. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna invest millions of dollars into education on how web design works and how our tool works. And then we're gonna go recruit an insane amount of talented designers to come use our tool and promote our tool. And bang, they're a $5 billion company, right? And they prove that people actually do wanna learn. And if we go back to the imposter syndrome argument, the number one way to get rid of imposter syndrome is to be confident in the work that you're doing. The idea, like people, if you're speaking to the underlying humanity of the individual, Take somebody who has spent 5 years in Elementor and still doesn't know the language of web design, and somebody who did PB 101 and WDD Lives and Bricks for 5 years, and measure their self-esteem. I can guarantee you the people on Bricks who know what they're doing, who learn from scratch, who learn the right way, who have command and control of their projects, have far more confidence and self-esteem and far less imposter syndrome than somebody who spent the last 5 years dicking around in Elementor. I guarantee it, okay? So speaking to a human level, we're producing more confident, more capable humans with this approach, and the dumbed down approach is continuing to churn out imposters. That's all that's doing. So anyway, I made my decision. I've shown what I've shown. PB 101 has been wildly successful in terms of educating people. I literally get emails every single day from people that were like, you rescued me. I was on Elementor, I was on Divi, I was on Beaver. I had no idea what I was doing. I did PB 101. I've been doing this stuff in Bricks, putting it into practice. I'm building better sites, better projects. My clients are better off for it. And they wanted to do it. That's the thing, this idea that people don't want to learn. What is our industry going to become if our underlying philosophy is nobody wants to actually learn how to do what they're doing? What other industry is busy saying that? Right? Imagine like photography. I'm interested in photography. Imagine if all photography was guys. Nobody wants to learn the principles of photography. Okay. All we should focus on is auto cameras. Everything's auto and presets. Preset everything in Lightroom, and people don't actually care about photography. That's not what they just want the photos. That's all they want. No. If you're gonna be a professional photographer, or you're gonna be a hobby photographer that actually has confidence in their skill, right, and actually enjoys the workmanship and craftsmanship and skill of photography, you do want to learn photography, right? So the industry can't be actively working against you saying, you don't wanna learn all that stuff. Auto everything, auto preset everything. This is how you dumb down an industry and make it valueless. This is how you make it not anything anybody wants to participate in, okay? That's my rant for today. We got to get out of here. I've got so much shit to do. I did it a little bit longer because, it's a holiday week and we're just having fun and we're hanging out, and, half the people have already left, and that's okay. Cheers to them. No more questions. I see more rolling in. No more questions. Let's get out of here. Drop comments, hit a like on the streams don't like themselves, contrary to popular belief. You do have to hit the like button. So hit the like, drop some comments, come see me in the inner circle, come see me in the ACSS community, come see me on Twitter. Love you guys. I'm out. Peace.